Welcome to Surviving to Thriving, the podcast for women ready to reclaim their energy, clarity, and life. I'm Dr. Rachel Yeager, and I know what it's like to feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and stuck. Here, we go beyond quick fixes to explore the science and soul of healing, covering stress resilience, brain reset, hormone balance, nervous system support, and connecting with your intuition. If you're ready to stop surviving and start thriving, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. We're going to do a deep dive into intuition today because intuition is our superpower. I think everyone has intuition, and for women, intuition comes really easily for a lot of women. And for me, this has been a huge part of my healing journey. And honestly, probably the most important thing I've done is switch from trying to think everything through logically to actually feeling my way through life to make my decisions. So let's dive in to intuition. So a lot of women feel like they can't hear their intuition, or they've lost their intuition, or feel lost spiritually. And what I see often that's really happening is that our nervous system is dysregulated. So our nervous system, our brain, and its connection to all the nerves and all those signals it's sending in our body is like our gateway, our physical gateway between our consciousness, which you could say embodies our spirit, and our intuition, which is tied to that, and our physical self, like our physical vessel, our body. So our nervous system can receive information, and it's also sending information to our body constantly. So if we're dysregulated, if we don't have a balanced nervous system state and we're in survival mode, it's going to be so hard to tap into intuition. It's really hard for me to get a gut feeling or feel grounded and feel like I'm really in my body. If I wiggle my fingers and my toes, feel like I was already fully present with all my energy down in my body. It's really hard to have that grounded sense when I feel like I'm in this fight or flight survival mode. So if your subconscious brain is still running old survival programs, it's going to be harder to tap into your intuition. So that can be a really big barrier. Another thing is intuition is receiving. So as a woman growing up in a patriarchal society where the default for everything and the standard for everything is whatever would be happening in a man's brain. So all the books that we read in school and what, philosophy is. I took a class and it was like, this is philosophy. These are the standards of philosophy. And they were all male philosophers. And everything about the standards that were set to meet that are considered, quote, standard in society, these are benchmarks and happenings that are common with men, but this does not represent what's going on in our nervous system, as women. And so the body not feeling safe enough to receive is huge because in our patriarchal society, the dominant energy is, if we think about Chinese medicine, we have yin and yang. It's the yang energy. It's the outpouring of energy. It's the fire. It's the reaching out. It's the pushing. It's the pushing through to accomplish what we want. Using logic and reason and making a plan and executing that plan and going for what you want and hustling and all those things. That's all yang energy. That is the dominant energy in our society. Our society rewards those behaviors because it is built on that yang energy. So yin energy, which is also considered feminine energy, and even though I'm talking about men and women, this is energy everyone has. Ideally, we all have a balance of masculine and feminine energy, and it has nothing to do with your actual sexual masculinity or sexual femininity. You might feel that you have more masculine energy in general or more feminine energy in general, and that can go for anyone of any sex. So if we think about this feminine yin energy of receiving, yin energy is letting stuff flow in, being open to receive information, receiving guidance, receiving messages, being able to receive love. All of that is very yin. Yin is, am I still enough and am I connected inward enough to be able to tap in to that kind of receiving energy? And so with spirituality, a lot of times we are going to be most connected if we're able to receive. We're pushing out trying to connect to somewhere and we're putting our arm out and we're reaching out for something. If we have the energy of forcing to connect or forcing something to happen or expecting something very specific instead of being open-minded to what we receive, that's more of a yang approach. And I actually never felt super connected to the style of the rigid monk meditation when I went to a Buddhist center in Thailand. And whenever I've done more rigid, like Qigong practices or something, if it was very rigid, like you have to do this move 33 times and you have to hit something this hard, like it should be uncomfortable, and you have to do this and this. All those things can be so helpful for someone. I'm not discounting those methods at all. But for me personally, I was looking for that intuition and gut and that feminine energy. And that comes more through practices like, if we were to compare something like yoga or something where we are inviting and working with our breath and we're staying open instead of having these rigid expectations and time schedules and numbers of things and exactly how much something needs to be registering or the intensity of something. So the feminine is a lot more moving and flowy, and the body needs to feel safe enough to be in that flowy state. When we're in survival mode, everything is rigid. Our brain is rigid. We are literally physically, our pupils dilate so that we can see right in front of us. We are physically narrow-minded, and we're going to be perspective-wise narrow-minded as well. It's hard to zoom out and have big perspective when we're in survival mode. True spirituality and the concepts of spirituality as they exist outside of rigid religious concepts, I really think that we have to be in this regulated, relaxed, flowy receiving state in order to be able to tap into those bigger perspectives. So you can't channel soul level guidance from a survival level body. You can. I don't think that most people can. I'm sure there's someone out there who can do it. From my personal experience and all the people I've worked with, it's pretty darn hard. If the soul level guidance is helping regulate your nervous system, then you're opening yourself for more. But if you're staying in survival mode, then that's pretty difficult to do. So I view the body as a vessel. This isn't like a creepy exorcism ghost style view of things. This is simply that our bodies are all little conduits. We're all little sparks, and we are all connected to a bigger consciousness. And so since we're all connected and we're all tapped in, and we are these sparks, we are these beautiful vessels. We have all of this humanness layered on top because we're having a human experience, but our bodies are vessels. And so we can be conduits or channels or open vessels to receive information. And I like to think of intuition not as a mystical or metaphysical talent, but it's a blend of our physiological state, so being connected to our humanness, because it's through our body that we're actually receiving this felt sense of intuition, even if it's coming from our spirit or from this greater knowing or greater collective. We're still having a human experience. It is still coming in through our vessel. And so it's like a combination of our physiological and our energetic state. So if our body can be safe and open and grounded, then we can hold higher information. When the body is dysregulated or our subconscious is full of a lot of I'm not safe or I'm not allowed or I'm not enough or I'll be judged messages, then that channel closes. And you might hear the term blocks in energy work. Usually that's coming from subconscious beliefs or emotions that are trapped in the body or trapped somewhere in the subconscious. And so because of that, they're creating blocks in us being able to receive fully into this vessel because we're storing those human level barriers in our system. So regulation plus subconscious clearing helps us be really embodied and fully be open, be an open vessel. So let's dive into nervous system regulation a little bit more. If we're in the fight or flight state, that creates urgency. There's a lot of fear, there's catastrophizing, and our intuition can get distorted because it's pretty hard to tell apart anxiety from intuition. When we're in a calm state, it's a lot easier to tell. But a lot of the times that we're reaching for our intuition is going to be a time where we feel pressure or worry, or we're having high anxiety. So there's a couple ways to tell apart anxiety from intuition. Anxiety is a lot of mental energy. We're thinking these thoughts. It's very much a mental thinking, what if kind of energy. If it's a what if energy, that's always anxiety. Intuition is going to show up as this is the fact. Like, this is it. This is how it is. You are experiencing this, or this is happening. It's more of a knowing. It's not a catastrophizing of what if. But it's a lot easier, I think, to practice connecting to your intuition when you're in a calm state so that you can then differentiate your anxiety from your intuition more easily when you are in a heightened state. When we're in a shutdown or a freeze, we get numbness, we get this dissociated feeling, and our intuition becomes muted. It's like someone is pressing the pause button or powering down our vessel. So we don't have that felt sense in our body because our body is shut off because we're ready to be the gazelle eaten by the lion. So our brain is numbing us because we were in fight or flight for so long, we must not have outrun the lion. So if we're in the fight or flight state, or we're in the shutdown state, and we're not in our safe, regulated rest, heal, and digest state, it's going to be a lot harder to access and have our body be this vessel that we can receive information through. Having a regulated system really creates clarity and allows us to be receptive. When we're regulated, we have better interoception. So this is our feeling of sensing and receiving information and the stimuli that we absorb from our surroundings and how it goes in and feeds into our brain and our visual building and perception and imagery of everything that's around us. If we think about our energetic field, and even if you don't believe in an energy field, just think about all of the trillions of cells in your body that are tiny batteries. That creates an electromagnetic field. That's science, that's physics. So think of that. You have this field that's around you all the time, and your body is used to operating in that certain electromagnetic field in the way that it's supposed to be. And so if we have disruptions in that, then it's going to be harder for our cells to operate and be their best. It's going to be harder for our brain cells to fire appropriately. So if our electromagnetic field is off or our energetic field is off because our nervous system is on high alert, so it's making all of our cells switch into survival mode, that alters that field. We're going to get a different sense. We're going to have a different field because we're in survival mode. If our factories are functioning at 100% versus 10%, that's a way different electrical output. Our fascia, or our extracellular matrix and all of the tissues that are connecting our body from head to toe, actually becomes resonant when we are in a regulated nervous system state. This sounds crazy, but Dr. Klinghardt has done a lot of research on this, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and we have organized cell information and signals, and we have an organized fascia structure when our nervous system is regulated. When we're in fight or flight, our cells even send out dysregulated light. So our cells are always sending out light. Just because our human eyes can't detect and see and process that particular wavelength of light, we can measure the photons, the biophotons that our cells are emitting. And our cells emit disorganized light when we are in trouble or an organ is stressed or we are stressed as an organism. So if we are regulated, we have this harmonized, synchronized, very organized, uniform, intelligent light streaming out of our cells, and our fascia is emitting this light, and the communication system is fully online. We're like a computer system with a crystalline hard drive structure, which is a lattice grid structure. That's our grid. It's all lined up. Everything is communicating. Everything is plugged in and operating the way that it should. Versus if you get your computer wet or something and then you're trying to send signals, we don't have a resonant, coherent communication system. And also when our nervous system is regulated, subtle signs are going to be more noticeable. So something we might have missed before, we're actually going to be able to pick up and perceive and then act on. And so Whether or not you believe in spirit guides or where these messages can come from, whatever it is, you're going to be able to have more information and more awareness and more receiving if you're in a regulated state. So let's talk about our subconscious beliefs. These block our intuition. And our subconscious, I feel like it's taking a lot of heat lately. We're talking about nervous system dysregulation and it's because our subconscious is doing this, and that's creating these problems in our body or this problem in our mental health. But our subconscious brain is acting based on what it thinks is our best interests. Our subconscious brain's only goal is for us to survive. Survival, period. It is trying to keep us alive. It has our best interest at heart, and it just wants us to survive, and it is cataloging our threats. It's building a negative file cabinet so that we can avoid these possible threats. It's logging all of this other information that can cause us to have a negative skewing of the world if we don't actively do things to help counter that. But our subconscious might hold beliefs like, it's not safe to slow down. I must be perfect. Or if I listen to myself, I'll make a mistake. Or being intuitive makes me weird. I need external validation before I act. If I trust my instincts, I'll get hurt. If we're having those kind of blocking beliefs, then our nervous system isn't going to allow intuitive guidance through. There's so many more subconscious beliefs. We're always going to have some blocking subconscious beliefs because we are humans, and our subconscious brain is a big part of our humanness. And we're all constantly acting to get our needs met and to feel certain emotions and avoid distressing emotions. So we're all trying to be happy or trying to feel a certain way. And so this is all wrapped up in our subconscious beliefs. A lot of our subconscious beliefs are formed between the ages of 0 and 7. And so really working with that inner child, doing stuff like IFS parts work can be really helpful for understanding what your beliefs are so that you can then examine them. And for me, a lot of subconscious beliefs that I held were not my own. They came from other people, or they came from societal constructs or religious constructs. And they were actually truly my truth. They weren't things that I truly believed. Some of my subconscious beliefs did come from different childhood experiences that made my brain think certain things were safe or not a good idea, or made me think about myself a certain way or judge myself a certain way. And then other beliefs can come from just different things that you've picked up throughout life. And some of them seem really random. So figuring out what those are is huge. It takes years minimum to deconstruct a lot of these subconscious beliefs, but awareness is the first step. So if you're sitting there thinking, I feel great all the time, I don't have any negative self-talk, I hear you. I feel pretty great all the time. I don't have negative self-talk in my head. Like I don't have that narrative voice that people describe. And I still had so many subconscious beliefs to dismantle because we live in this society. We didn't grow up by ourselves in the wood, experiencing the world in a totally uninfluenced way. So intuition requires permission from our subconscious. If we have these beliefs that are blocking us, we're not getting that permission. Our subconscious is not trying to sabotage us. It's trying to protect us. But this is where we can come in and say, okay, I'm the adult. Like we're in 2025 right now. And here's what we're going to do because these beliefs are no longer serving me. Or this belief is serving me and I'm going to keep this one, whatever it is. We want to be able to sort through these with a really accurate lens. And one last note on that, one thing that really helped me explore my subconscious beliefs is brain spotting. This is where you use your eyes as a gateway to your brain. Don't even have to speak. You don't have to share anything about anything that you're thinking about. And you will have a belief pop in your head. You will be like, wow, I feel so angry and I feel this feeling of whatever it is. That's a subconscious belief popping up. So it's a really neat, quick way to dive into your subconscious beliefs without having to wade through just purely CBT talk therapy to try to figure out what might be there. So how can physical things interfere with receiving this intuition guidance? So inflammation interferes with that interoception sense where we're feeling and using all of our senses, including our gut feeling, intuition, felt sense. Inflammation is affecting our nerves. So it's going to affect the signals that we receive and how we view things. Chronic illness puts our body in survival mode. It makes us hyper vigilant. It makes us wonder and worry and think about things. It gives us anxiety. It can contribute to mental health conditions. And just for context here, even mental health conditions like schizophrenia have been linked to vector-borne disease like Lyme disease and nutrient deficiencies and autoimmunity like celiac, and so many physical causes of brain inflammation. Chronic illness puts us in survival mode. Things like mold and Lyme, they activate that hypervigilance system. If we have hormone shifts, that clouds our perception and our emotional clarity, because then we're like, is this feeling we're getting coming from our felt gut feeling sense, or is this coming from something else because my hormones are off and so I'm having more of this upset feeling or whatever it is? When our body is overwhelmed, all of our energy goes into staying alive, not into listening. So we might do a lot of yin activities like rest while we're sick or while we're having mental health struggles, but we're still in this fight or flight searching mode, which is a yang output activity. We're often not in this surrender of just receiving and listening when we're sick. So chances are, if you're listening to this, your intuition isn't broken. Our intuition can never be broken. Your body is probably just overloaded, and probably no one taught you how to tap into this because this is not part of our societal structure, even though I think our society would be pretty awesome if this were a standard thing instead of being considered the woo-woo alternative way of viewing the world. At what point did we prioritize logic and reason and only the things that have already been researched? So someone decided that there's a certain criteria that must be met for something to be published. And then from there, if it's not researched and it doesn't exist in research yet, then it doesn't exist. So what about the time before probiotics when those were bogus? And what about the time before SIBO when saying you had an overgrowth of normal bacteria was all a hoax? Because there wasn't research yet. Now there's so much research on both of those things. So they're suddenly valid concepts. But I think we should challenge this idea of something must be written in this way that someone in society designated as the standard. And we all inherited that construct growing up. What about our gut feeling? How did we find out all of these thousands, hundreds of thousands of herbs out there? Did someone just try every single one and try to figure out what happened in their body and see if they were poisonous and if they died or not? No, we know from different native tribes that they were receiving information. They were open. They were listening to their intuition. They were receiving guidance. And based on that guidance, they were told to go try this plant or to go do this, or that this plant had this properties, or that this one would have these effects and this one was safe and this one wasn't. So receiving that information can be a part of our health practice. And just sitting and receiving can actually be a huge part of healing. Doesn't have to be this big yang research effort all the time. It's great to have that too, but I don't think that should be our only backbone. So let's talk about embodying our soul energy. So my truth for me is that we all have a soul and we also have a physical body. And our soul is a little bit bigger than our body. It stretches out around us. It's like a pillowy little bubble around us and a couple of feet out away from our body. And so we have this soul. Our soul has its own sensing and perception. And then we have our human body, which also has its own sensing and perception. And our soul can anchor into and fully surround and fully embody our body. Or you may have heard this in near-death experiences or people who have passed and then come back to life, that your soul drifts out, floats above your body. So your soul can be separate from your body. But in this lifetime, if we are fully embodied and we're healthy and we're living as our best selves, then our soul and our body are going to be overlapping. They're going to be taking up the same space. I feel like soul energy can only anchor fully into a regulated body. If we're dysregulated, so we're not feeling like we're grounded in our body, that usually means our soul is not fully down in our body. I've worked with a lot of really neat energy workers, and when I would first start, they'd be like, let's bring your energy down into your body. And I'd be like, what do you mean? How could my energy not be in my body? I'm sitting here talking. But then over time, as I tried it and I wiggled my fingers and I wiggled my toe and I wiggled my big toe and then my second toe, then I paid attention to my heel and then my calf and then my knee. And I would flow up the rest of my body. And that awareness in my body did make me feel different. I had a different experience. And I noticed that when I felt like I was really in my body and my body really felt like mine, and it felt like my soul was really overlapping the space that my body was taking up, that's when I felt really regulated and grounded and most like myself. Life felt easiest, felt the easiest to make decisions. I had a lot more clarity. I had a lot more courage. I felt more of my natural instinct and more guidance and direction. So this is what we call embodiment. Somatic therapy is getting really popular. And because people are recognizing the benefits of this embodiment, even if it's not something that we can easily research, this embodiment is a huge prerequisite for us getting to feel like our best, calm, grounded selves. And I think that we're going to have more and more research about it. There are some researchers out there that are actually starting to measure things like consciousness and intention. But all of that, even if we try to put a science lens, that's quantum physics. That's the crazy fact that our sheer intention and consciousness and awareness actually changes the outcome and can influence particles' behavior in matter, in this earth space. Everything ties together and it still is fully blended with science. But this embodiment, this is really huge. I think that a lot of this is coming from our fascia, which is that tissue in the body that can carry these signals and feel really alive and can carry intelligent information and make all of the signals and information in our body feel really organized. I think when we're really embodied, I think our fascia is communicating at its most intelligent level. So some people believe in spirit guides. I personally believe in spirit guides because I've been able to communicate with mine very frequently and have had conversations and messages and experiences that wouldn't make sense in the lens of a totally conventional, traditional human experience. So guides are not like, well, sometimes they're yelling at you, but they're not yelling at you in a way where you don't have to do anything and you're going to hear them. It's usually the act of receiving. It's being in the quiet, being in the still, having this quiet knowing. And then, synchronicities in your life might start to show up, or you start really noticing something or focusing on something where you might hear that really clear message. And a lot of people, guides is the same as guardian angels. So whether you think of your guardian angel or your guide or whatever you want to call it, or a past loved one who's looking over you, these are all just what we call guides because it means that they're not like a physical person in the flesh in this lifetime right now. So these guides, they make you feel accompanied instead of alone. Feeling that presence of something greater and feeling accompanied is a huge part of regulating your nervous system. If we think we're just all alone drowning, we're going to stay in survival mode, and it's way harder to have a regulated nervous system. So this one kind of feeds in both directions. If we can start trying to communicate with our guides, it can help regulate our nervous system. And also, a regulated nervous system is going to receive messages and feel more connected to guides than otherwise. So when our subconscious feels nice and calm and regulated, it's going to be a lot easier. It feels safe to receive guidance. So what can we do about these subconscious beliefs, and what can we do about a dysregulated nervous system so that we can act on our instinct? So we can notice what beliefs activate in the body. A lot of us aren't aware of our beliefs. If you've ever been, for example, if you're on social media and someone is commenting something and it's really obvious that they're projecting something personal on someone else, I'm sure we've all seen that. That's a belief that got activated in their body, and they're acting on that belief. And there's no awareness of that belief that's driving their behavior. If you ask them why they did that, they would just say the other person was wrong. Having that patience with yourself, willingness to be wrong, willingness to go inwards, and enough self-love for yourself that you're okay exploring your flaws and all of that, what people call shadow work of working through all of these tricky things, like tricky experiences you might have been through in the past, and really helping become your most authentic self without all of this extra webbing on top of you. It's not always a pleasant experience. For a lot of people, it's beautiful, the growth, and we're very driven to do it. And also, it feels very heavy and it feels difficult. And there's a lot of distressing emotions that can come with that. So, noticing what beliefs we have in our body is like step number one. And working with a therapist to do that can be super helpful. And then looking for inherited patterns. Is there something in your family culture, some big trauma that is shared? Whatever it is, like what is a pattern that you might be manifesting that's a little bit bigger than yourself? So, epigenetics, we know that our DNA actually can transfer down trauma from generations to generations, changes our DNA, and that is passed down. People can have fears of something without even knowing what their ancestors experienced. And so whether you look at it through the science lens or you just look at ancestral patterns, there's a lot that can be explored there. Rewriting the belief that I'm not safe into I can trust my body, or I can trust my guidance to help my body and work with my body or my mind or whatever it is. We can allow our inner child or younger versions of ourselves to feel safe. So I had a great childhood. I truly did. And I still have had to do a lot of inner child work because we're learning a new world that we don't know when we're children. And we're encountering non-perfect humans. We're all non-perfect. So we all have some imperfect beliefs and things that don't serve us, no matter how great our childhood was. And releasing rules that were survival strategies but no longer needed. So maybe you felt like you had to perform in order to be loved, or you felt like you had to do this path and get to this career, and then everything would click into place. And that was a rule or a survival strategy for you. And maybe at this point in your life, you're realizing that you don't want your life built on those foundations. Those aren't actually your foundations. You don't actually believe in those. You're realizing that it's not about what you do. It's about you being. And so you might need to release some of those rules or survival strategies that served you in the past, but they're no longer needed. They don't serve you anymore. Using breath work, using muscle testing, using somatic work, there's so much help out there to identify blocks. There's the brain spotting, and then there's IFS, and there's all these different modes of therapy too that can be a lot more helpful than traditional cognitive behavioral therapy. Once our subconscious fear relaxes, our instinct becomes a lot more obvious. And this guided felt sense and this inner knowing that we know from our guides, from our deep knowing as a soul. And remember, our body is like this conduit for our soul to really express itself and come through. If we have that open space and no barriers, and we've cleared out all that junk and beliefs that aren't ours, so we can be a vessel to really allow that stuff to enter, and then we can process it, and then we can act on it. So in this space of intuition, we wouldn't have overthinking, we wouldn't have second guessing. You can still use logic and rationality, but you would be making decisions primarily through your felt sense of a knowing. There may have been a situation where logically someone was like great on paper, and then when you're with them, you just got a bad feeling. And I've seen a lot of stories of that, and then turns out later that person was not a good person. So that gut feeling that you get goes deeper than just logic and reason. And listening to that can be really powerful. But that instinct activates when our subconscious stops arguing. We don't have all that clash, mishmash. We have intelligent organization in our body because we've cleared out those beliefs that are this confusing energy that would be causing our body to have more disorganized signals. So we could view it as 3 layers that would align for our intuition to flow. So we can have a regulated nervous system in our body. We can have our subconscious giving us permission and safety and not being a bunch of white noise of these beliefs that aren't even ours, so that in our authentic self, we can be open and have space to receive and hold. And then from our soul, we can have clarity and higher guidance and really tap into our soul guides and something bigger than ourselves and information coming from outside. It's technically coming from within ourselves, but not in our brains, not in our heads. It's coming from within through the great collective, through this bigger energy that we're all part of. So being able to tap into that something bigger than ourselves. When all of these are aligned, that's when our intuition can flow. So practices that can help us create clarity in our body as a channel, as this beautiful vessel, to be able to hold this beautiful instinct, intuition, energy. Physically, hydration and minerals. Our cells need to be able to work. They need to be able to signal. We need to be able to have that intelligent organization in our fascia for our body's communication system. And a lot of times, if we're dehydrated, if we're low in nutrients, or if there's other factors that are causing our cell batteries to not be fully charged, like inflammation that's blocking that charge, then that's all going to affect our ability to be that channel. Getting morning sunlight, the light from the sun. You could do red light therapy, you could do infrared sauna, you could do blue light therapy, you could do all these things. Those are all in the sun spectrum of light. Sunlight is amazing. We've done so much research on how this affects our circadian rhythm and our sleep and our happiness, and it boosts our serotonin and our dopamine. But also, if we are actually light beings, all of our cells, remember, are emitting biophotons. They're all emitting light. Then we also are going to thrive and have this response to light. We are light, and light is really nourishing to us. Our mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of our cells, if you remember from your 6th grade biology class, that is all receiving that information from the light. Light carries information. A photon can store so much information. We don't even know what is in there. Like, I don't think we have a lot of technology at this point to truly dive that deep into quantum physics. Like, we're doing really cool experiments. Like, they're doing some neat stuff out there. But I don't think we are ever, as humans, going to fully understand everything energetically that comes with that light and everything that's being transmitted in that photon that we're receiving, because photons hold information. So when we receive that light, we're not only getting the therapeutic wavelengths of light, but we're getting all of that information too. Putting our feet on the floor, or especially on the ground outside, or any kind of conductive material like a stone, so that we can get that energy from the earth. So we build up positive charge. We get an accumulation of protons throughout the day, and the earth has a slightly negative charge. And research shows we lower our inflammation when we ground and we actually connect to the earth. In Chinese medicine, all of our meridians start in the feet, or they have a point for our organs that's reflected in the feet. And so something particularly about the feet and the soles of our feet, maybe because we're meant to walk upright, so our feet actually touch the ground. But there's something about connecting that to the earth's electromagnetic field. So remember, we're a bunch of cell batteries putting out an electromagnetic field. The earth has a ton of minerals and metals, and it has its own things going on, and it also has its own electromagnetic field. So when we're directly connecting to the earth, that is really healing and regulating for our nervous systems, and does more than research will probably ever be able to actually capture and quantify. Helping relax our face and unclench our jaw and not tense up our muscles. That inhibits our fascia. It inhibits that intelligent network that's carrying this light and carrying this information throughout our body. If we do really purposeful, intentional breathing is tricky because breathing exercises can feel very much like they're putting us in fight or flight mode when we are in fight or flight mode, because tuning into that part of our body that is so responsive to our sympathetic fight or flight nervous system can really amplify our awareness of our fight or flight state. So breathing is not for everyone at every stage. I used to get a ton of anxiety from focusing on breathing when I lived in mold and I didn't know that I was living in mold. So there's a lot of times when this isn't helpful, but if you are in a place to focus on heart-centered breathing or intentional breathing or slow conscious breathing, deep breathing, letting your body expand those muscles and then relax those muscles so that you actually get blood flow throughout your body instead of clenching by your diaphragm under your ribs all day, that can be really helpful. Feeling your emotions, letting your emotions move through you and experiencing them, that's really helpful. You can ask your subconscious, do I feel open and safe right now to receive guidance? Just see what your body says. Does it say yes? Does it say no? Don't listen in your mind. Listen from your body, or take your brain out, put it aside for a second. Like literally imagine putting it aside on your shoulder for a second And then whatever the split second answer that comes in when you're just almost in a dream state, like you're not fully focused, you're like daydreaming almost. See what comes through, see what that first answer is. And that's the actual answer, not the logically, I feel this way actually, and like rationalizing your way out of it. And then you can also journal. Journaling can be really powerful for a lot of people. What am I afraid will happen if I trust myself? What am I afraid would shift in my life if I started acting more like my authentic self? That can be really helpful to explore. So when you become this vessel and you're able to receive your intuition and you're able to have this clear guidance, what does life feel like? So basically everything becomes easier. It's easier to make decisions. It's easier to move through your day. You don't feel alone. You feel connected. You don't feel like you have to have the right answer and you have to, like it's up to you to solve all your problems because the answer is going to show up for you. It's going to be really obvious and clear what the decision is. Signals are clear. Things don't feel like you have to force it anymore or push or try so hard or exhaust yourself into burnout in order to get the answer or get where you want to be. You can act on instinct without second guessing yourself. So instead of overthinking or thinking back, oh, did I make the right decision? You wouldn't have that overthinking happening. Feel guided. You can really embrace your own knowing instead of abandoning it. A lot of us, without being consciously aware, are throughout our day constantly abandoning our own knowing. And we'll feel like our soul is in the same space as our body and that we're really embodied. And that can help us feel ready to show up and to go through each day in this human experience when our soul is in our body, not outside of it. So your intuition is waiting for you. It never left. It's simply waiting for your body and subconscious to feel safe enough to let it through. It is always a part of you. It is always there, whether it feels easy or not for you to access it. You do have intuition. Some people are naturally going to have more propensity to really be a channel and tap into this intuition. And other people might only do it more on a surface level, but we all have it as a potential waiting for us. So think for yourself. Just think in your mind about a time when you knew something instinctually. And were you blocked from acting on it? Did a belief or a concern block you from acting on it? Or did you act on it? And it might have been you got a weird feeling about something, or you got a feeling about a job or a place or a person or a partner, whatever it might be. Or maybe you narrowly avoided a car accident. Whatever it is, think about a moment when you experienced intuition and think of how beautiful that was to have that knowing come into your life. All right. It was good to share this message with everyone. Hope everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Surviving to Thriving. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This show is for education and inspiration, not medical advice. For tools and next steps to restore your health, energy, and peace of mind, visit my website or connect with me online. The links are in the show notes. Until next time, keep believing. Thriving is possible for you.